Okay, so I would like first to ask you to present yourself briefly.
Okay. Yeah, but Sean Gaffney. I come from Ireland. I was born in Dublin. I've lived in Sweden for 46 years. And Gestalt psychotherapist, trainer, clinical supervisor, and also organizational work with a Gestalt perspective.
How come you moved from Ireland to Sweden? I mean, it's been already 46 years, so.
Yeah, my ex-wife is Swedish.
Oh, okay.
I met her in Ireland. We got married in England, lived in England, lived in Ireland, and then lived in Sweden.
Okay. And you stayed there, even though she's your ex-wife. So I imagine you are now not longer together, but you are.
No, we divorced in 1986.
Okay, and but you somehow you are attached to Sweden, I suppose.
No, I stayed in Sweden because my son was here in Sweden, and so I stayed with him. And we now have the funny situation where I am still in Sweden, and he is married to an Irish girl he met in Sweden in school when he was 10, and they now live in Dublin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they live in Dublin and I live in Stockholm.
Oh, so you live in Stockholm, okay, right.
Yeah.
And now you are in your flat, in your house?
Sorry?
You are now in your flat, in your house?
In my apartment, yeah.
Apartment.
Yeah.
And what's the painting there? I can see only size of it. I mean, like there is some painting, old painting.
There's painting. The painting is from. I can't move the screen, unfortunately.
Okay.
The painting is from the cover of a book, one of my books.
Okay. Which one?
So a friend of mine painted that and was used then as the cover.
Okay. What does it depict then?
Sorry?
What does it depict? What is it?
Yeah, well, actually, if you can just give me 1 minute, I will go and get the book.
Okay, yes.
And show you the book, because it's better, easier than showing you the painting.
Great.
Can you see it?
Yes, the Last Midas suit, and this is yeah, I can see the suit, but I cannot see the title. 9. Can you read it for me?
Yeah. The book is the Last Midas suite, 9 reflections in poetry on a painting, 2 painters and a dog.
So this is what you okay, so you wrote it.
Yes.
So now I am even more interested. So this is about this painting.
It's actually it's about the painting is Las Midas, which is a painting by the Spanish painter Velázquez.
Velázquez.
And I wrote the poem about that painting and what happened to me when I saw it in Madrid.
Madrid, right.
So I talked to the people in the painting, and the people in the painting talked to me.
Wow. Okay, yes.
And this is one of the people in the painting is the princess who was 5 years old. And she's one of the people I speak with. And my friend, who's also a Gestalt trained person and a painter herself, painted, this is the princess.
Okay.
So she painted a version of the princess,
right,
based on the conversation.
Wow. Wow, very interesting. So it is available, and I can buy it.
Yeah, you can buy this on the net, on Amazon.
Amazon or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Book depository or wow. I will show you something, okay? Because it arrived only before we actually met. I will show you something.
Yeah.
Let me see. This is what I ordered. This is like Maria Sibylla Marian. She lived in 18th century.
Okay.
Oh.
Somebody's phoning me. Sorry. Hello. Okay. Yeah. Är du utanför porten eller? Himlabacken 12. Ja, Himlabacken 12, plan 4. Ja, 3, 1 och sedan OK. Yeah, okay. Hey. Sorry about that.
It's Swedish.
I get very few phone calls, so I didn't bother turning the phone off.
Okay, that's okay.
I'll do it now though.
Right.
So it's on flight mode, okay?
Okay, that's okay.
And this book, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like a huge book of a woman who was lived in 18th century. She was a geologist, and she also was a painter.
Okay.
Of this. Yeah. And I am super excited about this book. This is it's beautiful. So so I guess we both share some enthusiasm about art, I believe. Do you paint yourself?
No.
Me either. Okay.
No, it's like music. I love music, but I don't play anything.
Yeah, I can see that these are like not books, but these are like CDs.
They're all my CDs.
Yeah, right. And what type of music do you like?
Literally everything. So classical music, Irish traditional music, folk music, rock music, some pop, but I have just about all kinds of music, and I can listen to any of it all the time.
Okay. The questions that we usually ask is, well, there are several questions that are standard, and one of them is, please tell me, how would you describe yourself? What are the most important qualities? What are the most important values that would characterize you as a person?
As a person, I think the strongest value as a person is family. In fact, my second book of poems was about family. So family is very important to me. and keeping a connection with my son is very important to me. And the sense of belonging to a family is important to me. So I'd say that is a strong value. Another value would be freedom to express myself. And to express myself, I can do that in many ways. I can do that as a therapist, I can do that as a consultant, as a trainer, as a teacher, as a poet. As long as I have the freedom to do that, I feel perfectly happy. My other values would be, an important value would be the importance of not just the physical, but the spiritual also. The importance of having a spiritual life and access to spirituality. And that's about it.
And poetry, like, because you identify yourself as a poet, so well, I actually read the last thing you sent to New Gestalt Voices.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit louder?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, speaking about poetry, because you identify yourself as a poet.
Yes.
So, so was it you first started to be or define yourself as a poet or as a Gestalt therapist? I wonder.
Well, it's an interesting question, because when I started writing poetry in both English and in my own country's language, Irish, when I was about 16.
16.
And I probably stopped somewhere around 35, 40, maybe. And that's when around that time, I became a therapist. And then I retired in 2009. And I started writing poetry again. So I've now published 3 books of poetry, and I have a 4th one coming very soon.
Okay, great. In English or in Swedish?
In English.
In English, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm simply. Oh.
Right, there's someone at the door. Hey, can they go? Yeah, they go in there. Yeah, they own the door. Hej då! Sorry, Camilla. Very strange. Very strange day. Yeah.
You are a busy man. People calling, dropping in.
Yes.
Great.
But now I'm all yours.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, basically, I'm interested in your life until you get at this 35, 40 when you started to be a Gestalt therapist. if you could shortly say, yeah, about your life, how you started to write poetry, who has influenced you in your life.
Well, I started writing poetry when I was 16, but then being Irish, I was brought up in an atmosphere of literature and art, so it was very, very easy. And then I stopped. Then I moved to England and worked in business, in marketing and sales in England. And so I worked in business. And then when I moved to Sweden in 1975, I began teaching English and came into the academic world in Sweden. So I was a lecturer and a head of department in the Stockholm School of Economics. And there I became a lecturer, an academic lecturer. And then an important aspect of my life, both my professional life and my personal life, is that I had two sons. The youngest son died of leukemia when he was 14. And that's what changed my life completely. At some stage after his death, and that's when my divorce happened as well, because it was a very, very difficult time in our marriage. I realized that I had always been more of a father to my first son than to my second son. My first son was my favorite, clearly. And I felt that I didn't feel good about that. Now my youngest son was dead. And I had seen I was with him when he died. And I had regrets about not having been such a great father to him. So I decided to become a better person. And I went into therapy, and then I went into Gestalt therapy training. And so that was part of my journey in being a better person.
And would you say you succeeded? Gestalt therapy approach was a good choice?
Sorry, can you speak a little bit louder? I can't hear.
Yeah, okay, sorry. It's so do you think Gestalt therapy approach was a good choice to becoming a better person?
Well, it became a good choice. But then the Gestalt approach, as a teacher, I was very aware of the educational application of Gestalt ideas, of Gestalt psychology. So I was already attracted to this way of thinking. So when in fact, I can tell you what it became a funny story.
Okay.
In my work in the Stockholm School of Economics and as a lecturer, I was head of a department in the school. I attended a big exhibition of educational materials on behalf of the university where I was working. And I was walking along between all of these people selling their stuff. And this woman stepped in front of me and she said, "Are you in crisis? Would you like to change your life?" And I said, "Yes and yes." and she gave me a piece of paper, which was an advertisement for a Gestalt intensive, a 3-week, 3 times 1 week in group therapy. And as soon as I went on that, I realized I can do this. I work with groups. I've worked with groups now as a teacher. So yeah, I could do this. And it would be part of my project of becoming a better person. So that's how I came into Gestalt therapy.
So what attracted you at that time?
What attracted me was that it was the focus on the experiential nature of learning, learning by doing, understanding things by doing them, by having activities, and the focus of experiencing things rather than talking about them. And that really, really came home to me. And as a teacher, I knew that learning was all about that. Learning was not about me saying what the students should do, but how I communicated with the students. That's where the learning happened. So I realized, yeah, this attracts me. I can do this. So yeah.
And you say becoming a better person, and so I wonder how did Gestalt therapy affect you as a person? How were you affected? Yeah, how were you affected? Yeah.
Because during these 3 weeks, 3 intensive weeks on a residential, I realized how much I had changed, and I realized how I really felt that I was, as a person, I was feeling a lot better with myself. And the other thing, my other son, my living son, helped me in this. I came home one day from one of these weeks, and I walked in the door, and he said, "Stop." I said, "What?" He said, "Stop. You are doing this for your sake. I do not need to hear all about it. So please don't tell me about what a wonderful week it was. Sit down and reflect," he said, "on what a wonderful week it was for you, and stop trying to make me different." I thought, yeah, okay, that's interesting. So I can say that both of my sons were involved. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, yeah. And yeah, what was the most challenging in Gestalt training through all these initial years for you?
The most challenging?
Yeah, the most difficult actually to apply, to take.
Yeah. The most difficult for me was really to, if I use a quote from Fritz Perls, was actually losing my head and coming to my senses. So going from the cognitive, I lived in a cognitive world, in the academic world, which is very, very cognitive, and then going to a more physically related world, a more immediate world of, the world of experience. So that's what was really, really attracted me, and still does.
So you've been involved, engaged in Gestalt therapy world, in Gestalt community for years, and I wonder, because you also started to, I imagine, follow your own path within Gestalt therapy.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah.
If you could say briefly about that.
Yeah. My own path as a Gestalt therapist, I realized that my real fascination as a teacher and now as in my experience was working with groups. So I began to focus on learning more about groups and working Gestalt with groups. And then running my own groups. And at the time, shortly after I finished my training, I was able to get a house in the countryside in Sweden, which had 12 beds. So I could have a group in my house.
Great.
In the country. So that was perfect. I could get out of town into the country and a group of 12. So I had, for many years, I had my own training groups there. And the groups were both a training in working with groups and also the application of Gestalt to groups and to organizations, and not just therapy.
Yes.
But kind of a wider application. So that was really, that was an important kind of a mixture of my two skills, my teaching skills and the Gestalt training.
And when did you realize that you want, that you are interested not only in therapy, but you also want to work, organizationally?
Yeah.
Organizations.
Well, one of the interesting things for me in my life has been that whenever I have been learning something, I immediately start doing it. So for example, when I was doing my Gestalt training, as soon as I was completed, I got my diploma, I began working with the first group I had ever worked with as a Gestalt therapist. And then I was invited to be a teacher on the training that I had myself done. And then there was the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland had a training in applying Gestalt to organizations. And I went on that training, and as soon as that was finished, I was invited to join that faculty. So I ended up learning and then doing it.
And I imagine that your past experience from this world of business world, marketing world, was helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I could see it from the two perspectives, from the perspective of business and the perspective of the Gestalt application.
Yes.
To organizations.
And so I imagine that you continued your trainings to train, to teach, and you also write books, right?
Yes.
And can you say more? What were those books? What are they?
Well, what was interesting was when I was finished the training, I was writing articles. I had a lot of articles published in Gestalt journals, in the Gestalt Review in Cleveland, the Australian Gestalt Journal, the New Zealand Gestalt Journal, the British Gestalt Journal, and I was also, for a while, editor of the Nordic Gestalt Journal, which was in Swedish. So that really, that began really getting my interest in writing. And then some colleagues of mine in the Gestalt faculty here in Stockholm decided that since the Gestalt Academy in Scandinavia had done a master's program with the University of Derby in England. So we were teachers on a master's program. And as teachers on a master's program, we were automatically given a master's degree in Gestalt by the university, because we were teaching this training. And because we had a master's degree, we could do a doctor's degree. So in 2004, I started my doctoral training to do a PhD, which of course meant writing. And I published my PhD I got the degree in 2009 and began continued writing. So I now have two books of Gestalt writing and a book about groups, and I have written a book about field theory with a colleague in Australia, and then my poetry books. So so writing became an important part of my life.
Exactly. And in your articles, your focus was on groups also?
No, my focus in the articles was on partly on groups, but also on the philosophical roots of Gestalt, looking at Kierkegaard and existentialism and so on, and then relating my own life to that, and also writing about organizations from a Gestalt perspective and groups from a Gestalt perspective. So everything then had this kind of center of Gestalt thinking expressed in writing.
How to call it? It must have been prolific time for you, to write so much, and you're still writing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was a very important period in my life where I was able to express all of the things that were important to me, the Gestalt training, the Gestalt perspective, the working from a Gestalt perspective, and to put it all in writing and express that, and realize that this was a form of teaching, really.
Of course.
Writing is another way of teaching. So I suppose I never stopped being a teacher.
And I wonder again about this interrelations between poetry and Gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy. Yeah. You mentioned that in the beginning, something about the book you showed me.
Yeah.
I guess I felt that it is to speak about, speak about art from Gestalt perspective, but also to use poetry, if that makes sense to you. I wonder,
but
more.
Camilla, this book, I'm a Gestalt therapist. The poetry is mine. The cover is painted by a Gestalt organizational consultant. The foreword is written by a Gestalt therapist in America. The book is illustrated by a Gestalt therapist in Sweden. It's designed by a Gestalt therapist in Sweden and published by a Gestalt therapist in Australia. So this is a very Gestalt book.
Yeah, but also, I mean, as far as the content goes,
Yeah.
Because you described this shortly, but I was interested in can you repeat that? Can you say more about that? You were attracted by this painting, and then you you tried.
I was attracted by the painting, and when the last time when I saw it the last time, I was attracted by what was happening in the painting and the people in the painting.
Uh-huh.
So I've really explored and I've read a lot about this painting. And the conversations I had with the people in the painting are a bit like empty chair work.
Uh-huh.
Because, and I'm imagining them talking back. So there's this dialogue going on. And I wanted to get deeper than the painting into the people.
Uh-huh.
So try to make the people alive, and to use in a sense, to go back to the original German use of the word, I wanted to gestalt the painting in poetry.
Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. Mm.
If that makes sense, yeah?
Yes, very much. Yeah, I'm really intrigued. Wow, so you really have this freedom, to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something I envy you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah, it feels really exciting.
Yeah.
Somehow to go beyond boundaries.
Yes.
Regular boundaries between disciplines, between different fields. I like it. I would like to read it. And what about those poetry books, or because you said that there are some forthcoming poetry books.
Yeah.
What is their, general theme? What was their,
Well, the second book that was published is called Family Matters, and it's memories of my family, going back to my parents, and to my grandparents, and the impact on me, which was a very important exploration, because my name, Sean, was the name of my mother's parents' only boy. And he died when he was 15. That was my mother's little brother. And for some reason, she called me Sean. So I had this very strange experience growing up, that my grandparents called me Sean, of course, but I never really knew whether they were talking about their son, Sean, or me. So I had this issue about identity from the age of, I don't know, 5 or 6. And then all of my aunts, and I had 6 aunts, I knew that calling me Sean was also reminding them of the brother they no longer had.
Wow.
So this whole issue of identity, so that's what the book was about, really, Family Matters. The third book, which I thought I might have it here, is called Aspects of Aging. And it's about growing old, becoming ill, going to hospital, operations, and all the thoughts about death and dying. So very, very very focused on the whole process of aging.
Yes.
And illness. The third book, no, that's the third book. The new one that's coming next has 4 big themes. One theme is about, well, there are two themes. One is about the Caucasus Mountains between Russia and Georgia, and how they are both a border and a boundary. They separate Georgia from Russia, and yet in the Soviet Union time, there was no separation. They were both part of the Soviet Union. And using that idea, that metaphor, I explore relationships with a woman. And the borders between us, which are the borders of age, the borders of distance, and the boundaries, which is where we could meet. And we could meet in terms of music, we could meet in terms of spirituality, we could meet in terms of, she's a photographer and photographs the Caucasus Mountains. So when I write about the mountains and the stories of the mountains, I'm also, in a sense, relating to her. So this is where this idea of that being about love. The second part of this book is about the Italian painter Caravaggio. And my meetings with Caravaggio through his paintings.
Wow.
In London and in Milan, and then on the net, and what they evoke in me, and how I responded to them. And Caravaggio's paintings also have a lot of the spirituality in them. And my response to the spirituality of the paintings, as well as the paintings themselves. But the theme of borders and boundaries, which is also the title of my PhD, is borders and boundaries.
Okay.
Because they're a very important concept in Gestalt, the concept of boundary. And it's only in English that the words border and boundary are different. Every other language translates them in the same word. I don't know about Polish.
Yes, same.
It's the same. And German, Swedish, they all translate them as if the same word. But in actual fact, in English, there are 2 distinct words, 2 very, very different words. And contact boundary is so important in Gestalt.
Yeah.
And what I do in this, throughout this new book, I'm looking at these ideas. What is it that separates us, and what is it that connects us? And the third part of the book is about, largely about what's happening in the world, in a sense, looking at world events from a field theory perspective. So looking at the pandemic as a field event, and seeing how, our responses to it, and beginning to explore, having explored age and death and dying in the earlier book, that suddenly with the pandemic, our death and dying is no longer personal. It's kind of collective. It's happening all around us. So there's something really, trying to explore that and understand it. And then I wanted to explore in this next book the art of writing poetry. Poetry as a form of art. And how do I approach it as a form of art? So basically the book is about love, life, and art.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Thank you for describing this step by step to me. I mean, and to the listeners, because I somehow somewhat imagine it is important we speak more of art in our community. I don't know. I really appreciate your attempts, you know, and we read a lot of theory, and it is important, and also important is social and cultural context.
Yeah.
That but yeah, but it is for me somehow too little said about art.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like my intuition. I could think of it more how to articulate it clearly, but this is my immediate reaction. Yeah.
I mean, I find that I go back to the use of the word gestalting as a verb.
Yeah.
That through art, I find I'm able to gestalt ideas, you know, very easily.
Yeah.
And there's a connection.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely, simply, and it's so good. You are actually finding time and energy to write, to share it with our, you know, community, with the world outside. And tell me, speaking about Gestalt therapy, Gestalt approach, future, what would you say?
The future. It's a very, very difficult area to look at, because more and more certainly in Europe, and more so in America, therapy is becoming a very technical way. It's a technique based, and Gestalt is not a technique based therapy. It's a relational therapy. It's a field event, and this is difficult to teach. Technique is very easy to teach, but the ideas of being present with a client is not easy to teach. It's something that the person can do or not. So the trainee can only learn being present with a client through being with the client and experiencing what it's like when they allow themselves to be present with the client, and what it's like when they don't allow themselves to be present, and to make a choice. Now, this means that I think Gestalt therapy training is going to be more and more and more subjectively based. So it's no longer an object to be studied. It's something to be done by the person. And the authorities in Europe don't really understand this, and don't really know what to do with us, because we're not focused on technique. We say things like, you know, relation, and they want to know, how do you do that? And we just say things like, well, you know, you are who you are with the and it's too vague for them. So maybe our training institutes may have to change and become more open about being different to everything else. And stop trying to be the same as everybody else. That's a mistake that happens certainly in Sweden, to make the training more formal and to get away from the experiential. And it certainly has an advantage from the point of view of the authorities, the social welfare and the health authorities in Sweden find it easier to understand us, but I don't think we find it easier to work with them. So I think we need to have a review, a thorough review of Gestalt training, and to begin to describe Gestalt as something you will only learn by doing. You won't learn it from a book. You can learn about it from a book, but you won't learn how to do it in a book. You'll actually have to do it, practice it, and discover what you can, what is good for you and what is not good for you. So I think the future will totally depend upon how the training institutes that we have now adapt, not to the demands of the world, of the state, but to the demands of our way of working. And to understand that Gestalt began as a very marginal therapy on the edge of things and attracted marginal people. I'm a very marginal, I'm a person from the margin. I'm not, even if I am an academic and I have a PhD and so on, I still like to be on the edge. And we think we have to somehow manage to sell that as a way of being. So I think it's up to the institutes to adapt and to attract the kind of people who can learn by doing and can become, in a sense, more personal. I'll go back to what Laura Pearl said, that there are as many Gestalt therapies as there are Gestalt therapists. Every Gestalt therapist does it in his or her own way. And that's the beauty of the use of self. That me as a Gestalt therapist and you as a Gestalt therapist with the same clients will behave differently. And that's what makes us Gestalt therapists. We're not doing the same thing. We're being us professionally with the client. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay.
I mean, at least for me to be continued, because I am going to read your book.
Okay. Yeah, great. And please get in touch with me if you have any questions.
Great. And
yeah.
Well, I hope you are well. COVID-19 hasn't affected you yet.
No.
No? Okay. So stay well.
Yeah, and the same to you, Camilla. I'm really pleased, happy to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will send you a preview of the video.
Good. Thank you.
And a form to fill in.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, of course. Okay.
It's a constant and agreement with our conditions. So you will see. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, the same. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.